Hi, welcome to our LinkedIn Live session. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending what part of the world you're joining us from. And thank you very much for taking the time. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Orla Dormer, and I'm Head of Growth and Community with TrustWorks. And I'm also the host of the Practical Privacy podcast. It's a short form podcast, very practical focus, looking at real challenges and strategies. If you don't know TrustWorks, it's the leading privacy and AI governance platform built around the reality of how organizations actually work. And we also offer a community for privacy professionals. We currently have over 600 members, privacy and security professionals, and AI governance, obviously, where we share best practices, advice. We host roundtable discussions regularly, where you can actively participate in the conversation. And we also offer a mentorship and a peer engaged program. Mentorship in order to participate as a mentor or a mentee, or peer engaged just to be able to network with your peers around the globe. So if anyone who would like to join the community, feel free to reach out to me directly, or we'll include a link here in the chat, or of course, visit the TrustWorks website. So today I am very pleased to welcome Evan Benjamin, founder of Tier 3 Inc. and AI Governance Advisor for INTLDA. Welcome, Evan.
Hi, Orla. Nice to be here. Thank you.
And it's great to have you here with me again. I think it was last year. I don't know, it was this time last year. You also joined me on LinkedIn Live session. And anyone who saw that will remember your energy. I think second to none. So one of the, I think, key concerns for all privacy teams today is obviously the use of AI across the business and the potential risks that come with that. But an awful lot of privacy professionals also feel that while they know there are risks that they need to be concerned about, their knowledge of AI, they're not sure just how in-depth it is. So from the conversation the other day, I think you gave us a lot of insights into the types of risks that we may or may not be considering. So please share with us a little bit about your experience and understanding of where we need to be focusing our attention.
Yeah, and hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I bring everything from a compliance background and from an kind of an auditor background and governance background. So I kind of blend all those together when I look at risk. And I've been talking a lot about agentic AI and vibe coding and things like that. I've seen people create things out of nowhere, create products and things like that out of nowhere, but then they don't know what they've created. So I want everyone to create. I want everyone to just wake up and create. So I'm not going to stop you from doing that. But I've seen hidden risk, and I don't mean to scare people or stop people from creating, because I'm pro innovation. I'm creating every day too. I'm creating, but I'm careful because I've been taught to look at certain things that could become bigger risks later. So there are liability traps. I was working on a compliance project where I would just see liability risk. I don't want to call them traps, but liability risk in when you create something and you don't know the impact you're having on people's data. There's a lot of bias in products that people aren't aware of. And bias is not, I tell people all the time, Orla, bias is not just a word like I'm going to mitigate bias. I'm going to eliminate bias. Bias is so hidden that there are forms of bias that we don't even know that are just, that remain even after you fix everything. So these are the risks. And you have to classify them according to privacy risk, security risk. We tell people all the time, do a risk assessment, do a risk register. Orla, when we do that, we think it's just going to be a few, and it turns out to be like pages and pages of risk that you don't even think about. So yeah, I'm just thinking in 2026, how do I let people know this? Should I ask people to do a risk register before they create, or risk register after they create or after they test? These are the questions that we have that are so hard. And that I have to ask, and people look at me and they say, here comes a guy who says no. Here comes a guy who's going to just force us to give this up. But in larger enterprises, they want to hear this. In smaller enterprises or startups, they say, wait a minute, we're good. So this is the dilemma, Orla. This is the dilemma that we're facing right now.
So for the teams that are building out their risk registry and their risk assessments, like what are the types of things they need to be focusing on?
Oh, what are the type of things they will see or that they might see? Like there is no magical, there is no, the issue I'm seeing, Orla, is that people download these risk register templates and they fill it out and they say, okay, we're good. And some of these templates you have to personalize it. You have to make it specific for your company, because the templates that we download, nothing against them, they're a great starting point. But if you don't modify them for your specific domain and business, you're going to leave out a lot of risk. And we're talking about, I want everyone to classify. I want everyone to say, these are my privacy risk. These are my security risk. These are my reputational risk. These are my, liability risk. I want them to classify. I wish, can I give you my first solution? I wish risk registers were classified. And risk registers are just one big risk register. So maybe, I know what you're thinking, maybe I'm the one who's going to go and just start creating a specialized risk register privacy, risk register security, risk register. I want to classify, I want to bucket these. And then I want you to start thinking, what did I leave out, right? Orla, a lot of us know that there's a formula for risk. It's likelihood times impact. What is the likelihood of something happening? What is the impact of something happening? Some of us just look at, what's the likelihood of it happening? Not much, let's do it. But if it happened, put it on a scale. Likelihood, 3. Impact, 5. Which dimension should you be worried about? So, break down risk into severity, impact, likelihood, classify the risk. Look at your risk register. If you exceed a certain score or threshold, don't move. Don't move ahead. And we have a word, mitigate risk, but you can mitigate risk all you want, but some risk you avoid. Some risk you accept. I'm going to accept it. Some risk you just transfer. You buy insurance and says, insurance will take care of it. You transfer, right? So, and some risk you mitigate. So you have to look at these ISO standards. I just completed training on ISO 27701. Great course. And it was on privacy information management system. How do you mitigate risk? How do you avoid risk? How do you transfer risk for privacy information management systems? Not just security information management systems, not just for AI. How do you handle all these risks for privacy? That's a whole ISO standard. So that's why I'm so big on this, because attack it from a privacy security lens first, then an AI governance lens, if that makes sense.
Okay. I know the other day when we were talking, we focused specifically on, human resources as one department in particular. And you gave us some very interesting examples of what you've seen from the bias perspective. I think it would be good to share that, actually.
Okay. I sort of focused on HR, and I sort of focused on HR developing applications that incorporate AI that make decisions. So these are automated employment decision tools, right? That's a whole category of tools that carry its own risk. So I'm sure I've been on AI interviews. I'm sure everyone here, most people have been on AI interviews. And it's very interesting when I'm talking to the AI person, the AI recruiter, they sound so real. I talked to one, she had a female voice, and she was asking me about my experience. if I closed my eyes, I thought I was talking to a real person, because I was talking about building something in the cloud. And then she politely interrupted me and says, "Oh, wait, that's good. Can you expand on that?" That was a good question. That was a good question. And I had to look at my computer like, wait a minute, are you real? And I'm touching the screen. Like, where are you? How did you know to ask that? So sometimes I forget that I'm talking to an AI because they make it so real that how do I know that my answers, what are they doing with my answers? And my answers were good, but she kept interrupting like, wait a minute, what about this? And I said, did you hear the last answer I did? They made a decision based on that. They made a decision. And I was answering one question. She cut me off in the middle of my answer. And she says, "That's good. We'll be in touch." What human would do that? What human would do that? And I felt offended, like, "We'll be in touch." I never heard from her. I never heard from that company again. So it doesn't matter how much you know. My hands are in their hands, in their AI hands. And how do I know the scoring? How do I know? Who was I compared with?
Yeah.
Was she able to see my face? I've got a very American sounding voice, and was she able to say, "Oh, his name is Evan, and he sounds normal, but wait a minute, he lives in northern Florida. We haven't had much experience with." How do I know? I'm never going to see the rubric that they use, and they'll probably develop this with an agent, right? And how do I know that that agent isn't talking to another agent in another jurisdiction and saying, "You got to check this out. Here's an agent that asks a question. Here's an agent that scores the question. Here's an agent that makes a decision," comes back to the first agent and say, "No." How do I know? And that was my fear. That was my concern. I want more transparency with these agents. They ask good questions, but they cut you off. I want more transparency.
Can you, what was the, you gave a specific example in our conversation that time about, it was actually a biased decision that was made. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, the specific example is, we don't know if the AI agents, and we're talking about HR because I could talk about other agents that make decisions for credit or things like this, but a lot of people coming out of school are going to be facing these AI agents for recruiting. They're not set up for it, because I have a family member who's getting his degree in cybersecurity. You would think that the school he goes to is going to tell them about cybersecurity risk and privacy risk. They're not. When I asked him what he learned, he said, "We learned how to code this. We learned how to open up the shell. We learned how to do this. What about the risk? What risk?" So his class is a huge class, and they're not talking about privacy, security risk. So how do we know that all these people, graduates, are going to go through AI interviews and be turned down, that they don't know why? Because they're going to be turned down according to experience level. No AI agent is going to look at them and say, "I know you're starting out. I see a lot of potential in you. Yes." They're not going to do that. In my opinion, I'm not an attorney, but I'm a concerned citizen who fears for my family's outcome and other people's outcome. And they're going to complain and say, "What can we do about it?" Nothing. Right now, nothing. Right? So that's why I went into auditing to say, can I audit what they did? Or there's laws in New York, like New York Local Law 144, that says you can't make these automated employment decisions without a bias mitigation, without publicizing, without notifying. Even in New York, how do I know that they follow those rules? How do I know that NYC Local Law 144 is being honored? And that's why the auditors love going to New York and saying, I'm going to audit this. There's a big organization that I'm familiar with. They go out and they specialize in this. And guess how busy they are. So this is what I'm worried about. When they say, is there bias, they're looking at dozens of bias. Dozens of bias, cognitive bias. And you can't just say, well, I have a recency bias. I have a, a human. You just can't list me all the human biases because there's there's hundreds, dozens of biases that you will not be testing for.
Well, you could say that even if it's not an AI carrying out the interview, it's a human. There's also potential bias there.
Well, no, say that again, because can you repeat that?
So if I was carrying out the interview, I could also be potentially biased. So why are we so concerned about the AI bias if the human bias is also potentially there?
Well, okay, you're right. You're right. But a lot of AI uses reinforcement learning with human feedback.
Okay.
So a lot of AI will say, I need a human to reinforce this learning.
Mm-hmm.
The biased human will come in and reinforce the bias.
Okay.
The non-biased human will come in and say, oh, I see bias. No, I'm going to override you. So you bring up a good point, because when they did an experiment where they created a resume with a male sounding name and a female sounding name,
Mm-hmm.
and then they just handed it to the same agent, and the agent looked at the male sounding name and said, wow, this is great experience. And they found out that the male sounding name used AI, and the human said, well, doesn't everyone use AI? But when the human looked at the female sounding resume, because they were brought in to review the AI decision, and the human looked at the female sounding name and said, can you believe she used AI? So it's the human that was biased. It's the human that said the male sounding name has more potential. That was human. That was a biased human. And most of those humans were younger people in their 20s. So the question is, why would a younger person in their 20s have these? Why would they talk like that?
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Where if you give it to me, I wouldn't say that. I would look at potential. I would look at, I wouldn't do that. So who's teaching them? Is my family going to say that, who just graduated? Where are they learning this? And that's what I'm saying. So human bias can be worse than AI bias. AI bias, it's hidden. It's hidden in the training data. You can't get rid of that. Human bias, where did that come from? How do I remove human bias even after AI bias is mitigated? So that's a great question.
And then you were saying earlier on about how like the agent can potentially call another agent and another agent. So if we think about like most privacy teams today, when they're looking at the tools that are going to be used across the business, and they want to do a risk assessment on this tool and decide if this tool is okay to be used, is it enough just to look at that tool, or do they need to be looking beyond that? Because that tool is potentially talking to other tools, other agents, in order to carry out its job.
Right. You start by looking at the tool, because you have to do a tool inventory. You have to do an agent inventory. We always tell people, look, go to your AI systems and do an AI inventory. What does that mean?
Yeah.
What I would love for anyone to come to me one day and say, what does that mean? What is an AI inventory? So we told someone, do an AI inventory, and they counted all the machines where they were using to develop the product. But some of these machines are in the cloud. So they're thinking machines. Are they thinking agents? No, because if one machine calls an agent, and that agent calls another agent, and that agent calls another agent, now we've got agent chaos, where how do we keep track of who said what and when? So we need tools that actually say agent A said this, agent A called agent B. And Orla, have you ever, I was using Perplexity yesterday, and I asked a simple question. I said, please tell me about the latest law that came out. And it said, thinking tool, and then reading PDF tool, and then parsing PDF tool. And I counted. I said, do I really need all those tools to think, read, parse, and then tool, summarizing tool. And when you look at that, you don't know how many, I didn't ask for that many agents. So if I type in Perplexity, how many agents did you call? It's going to say, I don't know. And that's what I'm saying. How do I know that the thinking tool didn't call the parsing tool in another country, and the parsing tool didn't call the summarizing tool through another API, and the parsing, like, and we take it for granted. We say, oh, good, here comes my answer. Here comes my answer. And the answer finally comes back, and then it drops how many tools it used. And I'm just staring at it like, what if my question was even more complicated? It's like, hey, Perplexity, they have a feature where you can go and check your local, email and stuff like that. Hey, Perplexity, go check my Gmail, go check my calendar, go book this flight, go do this thing. I would love to see how many agents it takes. You've heard how many people does it take to put in a light bulb? How many agents does it take to answer a question? I want to know that. And I want to know, is there a way to audit how many agents it takes? So I'm going to say one more thing. I want you to ask your next question, but I want to say one more thing that's tied to this that's even more dangerous. Okay, so I'm going to wait for you to answer your next question, but I can't wait to tell you this next thing.
So no, what I was going to ask, so what you're saying there, for example, like when we look at, let's say we're going to start using Perplexity, and we do a risk analysis on Perplexity, and we look at their subprocessors. Is that enough? Or do we need to be looking at the subprocess of their subprocessors, because we don't know how far this is going along the chain?
Yes, you are on the right path. You're thinking like a true compliance professional, Orla. You have to look at the, we have controllers and processors for GDPR. We have providers and deployers for the EU AI Act. But if I'm using a model like ChatGPT or Anthropic or whatever, Claude Sonnet, they're level 1. But who does Anthropic use? I have to go to their site, I have to go to their trust center, and I have to say, who does Anthropic use? And Anthropic uses 10 other subprocessors. Are they going to list all of that in their terms of service or privacy policy? Maybe. Are they going to tell me subprocessor 1 has been fined or is a high risk? No. So what I did, I downloaded the data processing agreement with the model, and then I went to each subprocessor. I downloaded their data processing agreement, and then I fed that into AI, and I said, give me a vendor risk assessment for the processor and the subprocessor, and they came back with processor medium risk, subprocessor 1, critical subprocessor 2, high. And I said, well, I can't tell you not to use subprocessor 1. Yeah. And I really like the processor. What do I do? That's a situation. That's a situation. But can I go back to my thought that still I saved for you? When you were talking about one agent calls another agent, there's a very dangerous feature called, memory. And one agent will remember something about you and infer. This is a very dangerous word. If they infer something about me, they will tell that to agent 2. Agent 2 will take that and build it into its memory. Agent 2 will infer something and go to agent 3. I cannot stop. Let me invent a new word for everyone. This chain of inference. I cannot stop what's been inferred by agent 1 who told agent 2 who told agent 3. That's what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about just what I entered. I'm not worried about the AI looked at my name and said, that name is not going to fly. I'm worried about what it's going to infer. And I'm hoping some people who are listening to me will heed that advice for regular AI tools, but for agents. Agents are going to infer things about you and communicate that to other agents because they were told not to. That's my thought.
And is there anything we can actually do? I mean, the risks are there, we know, but I think the biggest challenge people are facing is what do we do about it? Like it sounds like a lot of, like even when you're talking about the agents and you know the levels beyond like tier 1 and 2 and whatnot, it just seems like we're trying not to slow down innovation, but we want to also protect from risk. So any suggestions on how we approach this?
Well, Orla, people stop short at the risk assessment, and it's compliance is becoming too much of a checkbox exercise, and I'm really sad that it's going in this direction. Because if I walk into a company and I say, let's do a risk assessment, let's do an impact assessment, let's do all of this, and I have 10 documents and I put that as evidence, they'll be happy, but we won't test how effective that is. So number one, test the effectiveness of all the documents you're working on. We're not doing that. We're not testing the effectiveness. And all these ISO standards are saying, do you have a policy, but how effective is it? ISO 42001, how effective is it? We are ignoring the continual improvement part of these ISO standards. That's number one. The solution is spend more time on continual monitoring and continual improvement of your policies. You will see where it's lacking. If you created a policy on May 1st and you didn't update it on June 1st and you just let it sit, because the auditor is coming in on June 15th, you've already failed. And they're going to ask you, did you test the effectiveness of that? So get away from generic risk templates and generic, exercises like I have a policy, I have standard operating procedures. Test that. Do more red teaming of your agents. We red team our tools, and we confuse red teaming with penetration testing. So the other thing I would say, do an AI red team, but then go beyond that and say, let's put in different outputs. Did the agent give a totally different output? Did they make the same inference with totally different output? I changed my name. Did the agent make the same inference? I still put a different male name, but did the agent make a similar inference? So get creative with your testing. Don't just buy a tool. Don't just buy don't just have a pen tester come in and say, are we good? A red teamer come and say, are we good? Don't just do that. Question the results. Question the results. You'd be surprised at what you missed.
And something you said the last day, you fight AI with AI. Something you said in our conversation the last day. Like, how can people use? Because there's a lot of elements here to this, and I'm sure AI can be used to help as well. I think you gave some tips last day on, like, when it came to your risk assessment and how you would use the AI to help you actually to do it broader.
Oh, yeah, I used. You mean I used AI to actually test my risk assessment? Yes. So when I did my risk assessment, because you need two things, you need a data processing agreement and you need a vendor risk assessment. So I wrote something in Claude that says, I gave it this big system prompt, and I said, go to this vendor and download the data processing agreement, use that, list all the subprocessors, use that to give me a critical vendor risk assessment. And then label it critical, high, medium, or low. Tell me, should I proceed? But Orla, I didn't stop there. Most people would say, that's a great system prompt, that's great use of AI. And Claude came back and told me stuff that really surprised me. I mean, it said, don't go. It says, go, no go, get out, leave right now. But guess what I did? I went to another model. And did the same thing. And that model said, yeah, you're okay. It's critical, but you'll be okay. So now I've got a conflict. So then I went to a third model and I said, use that as a judge. And that's called LLM as a judge. Okay. So the reason I use Perplexity, I'm not here to sell Perplexity, but the reason I like Perplexity, they have something called Model Counsel. And if you pay on a plan, if you pay pro or higher, you got Model Counsel. It doesn't tell me that sounds good. Tell me that the word Model Counsel sounds very good. And I said, turn on Model Counsel. And it turned on and it brought 3 or 4 agents into the room, 3 or 4 models into the room. And I typed my beautiful system prompt and it said, okay, ChatGPT, you're model 1. Sonnet 4.6, you're model 2. You know, Opus 4.7, you're model 3. Grok 4.3, you're the judge. And it went and it scrambled everything and it said, judges, what do you think? And 3 judges said yes, and the LLM as a judge came in and said no. So I think that's great. That's now, Orla, how many people have Perplexity and how many people can do that without Perplexity? They can just do that with different models. It takes too much time, and they pick their favorite model, find out what the answer and go with it. That's a mistake. So use LLM as a judge. Do this 2 or 3 times. See if you get the same answer.
Okay. Anything else that you can, I don't know, advise, recommend? Just conscious of time, but any other key nuggets of wisdom you can share that might help people down this road?
Yeah, I would tell people slow down because people are under pressure. People are under pressure from leadership and from their boards to develop something quickly because they have to keep pace. But respect legal and compliance because they're trying to protect you. They're not trying to prevent you. There's a difference between protection and prevention, right? There's a difference between protecting is one thing, prevention is another. So just respect legal and compliance. They are not the department of no. They are the department of yes, but. Okay. And yes, but don't be afraid of all the assessments you have to do, not just risk assessment, not just impact assessment, but privacy impact assessment. Follow, even though you may not be wanting GDPR compliance, follow their principles. And you'd be surprised at all the holes you're leaving for privacy. Find someone who knows ISO 27701. They're great. Just follow that, even though you don't want to be, you may not want an auditor to come out and do it. If you follow these principles, you'll be set. So you just got to slow down. Or I'm just telling people, slow down, hurry up, and slow down. That's what I'm telling people to do. So they don't miss these gaps. Even if they do guess what? Even if you do a gap analysis, you don't do anything about the gaps. So I just don't like doing things without actually fixing things. Okay. I don't like just policies and check boxes. Get rid of your checklist and to-do list and actually look at something and say, what are we missing? Keep asking, what are we missing? That's I hope someone takes this to heart.
I'm still stuck on the hurry up and slow down. Slightly counterintuitive, maybe, I don't know.
That's my new T-shirt. Hurry up and slow down.
It's definitely a conversation starter, that's for sure.
Yeah. And again, there's new federal laws coming out. Some of us only pay attention to the state laws because laws like California, New York, and Illinois are extremely tough. But you got to keep your eye on the federal landscape in the US because we're trying to abide by the EU, but our administration might say, no, we want our own federal legislation that doesn't really pay attention to the EU. And it doesn't even pay attention to the state laws. And there's even a new law that came out this week in our Congress. That's going to be on a federal level amazing, and it's in draft right now. But what if you don't keep up with that? You won't know if it's tougher than the state law. So when you develop, are you developing with a state law mindset or a federal law mindset or an EU AI mindset? What is your mindset? That's what I want to ask people.
Well, let's see if people interact on LinkedIn and give us their thoughts on this. That would be great. So thank you, Evan. Really appreciate it. Certainly food for thought. And, you know, it would be great if people could actually jump into this dialogue through LinkedIn, for example, share their suggestions and their insights, because this is by no means over. We have a lot of conversation to be had to figure out how to approach this in the best possible way. But yeah, I would appreciate it if we had, you know, suggestions from other people. But thank you so much, Evan. Really appreciate you sharing your thoughts today.
Thank you. And Orla, I hope when that people suggest, if they suggest, are they suggesting for startups or enterprise? Because we need to know at what level these are working. This is not a one size fit all. So I'm hoping that they say what level of organization that they're doing this from.
100%. Thank you so much, Evan. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Orla. This was great.
And thank you to everyone who took the time today. If, as I said, would love to get some interaction on LinkedIn if you have any thoughts or suggestion on how we can approach this. But as Evan said, it would be great to obviously filter through, is it startup, is it enterprise, which area are we talking about? And if you would like to join the TrustWorks community and to be able to be more actively involved in these conversations, feel free to reach out to me directly. Go to the TrustWorks website, or there should be a link somewhere here to sign up. Hope to see you all next time. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.